Okay, here's the last part now. A single red aerostat floating over the north bank on the long chain marked the turn-off for Kensington and Chelsea. Anna pulled out the air traffic and she flew over an expanse of large houses that stood beside the river. Lily's heart leaped when she saw them, for something about these streets spoke of home. Even though the professor had only just moved back to London, he had obviously returned to the area where they had all once lived. She felt as if she knew the landmarks from before, the piers and bridges and the streets, the park on the south side. They all looked remarkably familiar. She was sure she'd be safe here with the professor, and most importantly, he would be able to give her some answers about Papa and the perpetual motion machine at last. But Anna didn't stop, just floated on past the rows of tree-lined houses, and finally, 10 minutes later, jerked to a halt over a derelict stretch of dockyard between the waterfront and a railway siding crowded with engines. Below, on the port side, was a wharf filled with boats. A few steamers chugged in and out of the narrow canal that led to the river. "Sorry about the detour," Anna said, as she lowered Ladybird's anchor. "Where are we?" Robert asked. "Countess Creek, an airship mooring, and as near as I can get you to your fancy address. I don't want to get fined for weighing anchor in Chelsea. I've got a whole slew of unpaid air tickets as it is." She scribbled down a map on a scrap of paper and handed it to Lily. "This is how you'll get back to where you want to be. I'll be moored right here if you need me. Tomorrow I'll take a trip to Fleet Street, visit the offices of the Daily Cog, and I promise to stop by to see if you and your godfather let you know what I found out, and about your father and those men, Roach and Mould." She smiled at them. "Thank you, Anna." Lily kissed her cheek. "Not at all," Anna said. "I hope I can drum up something useful." She turned to Robert and she gave him a big hug. "Robert, I'm so sorry for your loss. I hope you'll find safe harbour and good advice with Lily's godfather." Finally, she leaned down and she scratched Malkin's ear. "Take care of them both, Malkin. Goodbye and good luck. I shall see you soon." They unwound the ship's metal ladder and Lily fastened Malkin in her coat once more before beginning her descent. Robert followed behind with the box and a few other possessions strapped on his back in a blanket sling. He was getting used to the up and down of the air travel much more now. He still felt a little vertigo, but his star had been right. With practice, the panic did subside. He wondered if his deep sense of loss would fade the same way over time, or whether it would be with him always. And what was he going to do if Lily's godfather couldn't take him in? Then he'd be alone in a vast grey city. They reached the bottom rung of the ladder and jumped the last few feet to the ground. Anna stood in the aperture of the doorway, waving at them. They smiled and waved back, and Malkin poked his head from Lily's jacket and gave a loud yipping howl of thanks. As Anna pulled up the ladder and closed Ladybird's door, Lily undid her jacket and let Malkin jump out. Robert decided he would miss the aeronaut. "I'm afraid we're on our own again now," he sighed. "Not quite," Lily said. "Help is at hand, and in the meantime, the three of us still make a good team." She took his arm, and with Malkin trotting beside them, they stepped from the mouth of the alleyway and set forth into the bustling streets of London. The search for the professor's house proved to be more complex than they had imagined, and took most of the morning. It was easy to get lost in the hubbub of Chelsea. Away from the smarter suburban streets, the main roads were like mechanical rivers. An endless stream of carts and wagons, trams and double-decker omnibuses, steam and clockwork carriages chugged along, spitting out smoke. Clamour and shouting emerged from every alley, while hawkers and hand carts wove about the pavement, and stench of oil, gas and manure filled the air, suffusing everything. Malkin led the way, claiming He'd memorised the route after a quick glance at Anna's map. Despite his bravado, his dithering gait did not inspire much confidence. Very few of the streets were signposted, and after they'd been walking for a good 20 minutes, Robert wondered if the mechanical knew where he was going at all. So he began stopping passers-by to ask for directions. That got Malkin rather huffy. "Tell him, Lily," the fox grumbled, "how Johnson Mechanicals never get lost." "Tell him yourself," Lily said. "I'm busy." She consulted a squiggle on her map. "I wonder if we have this up the right way." When they finally found it, the street Riverside Walk turned out to be a tree-lined avenue filled with detached houses with long drives, tall iron railings and large gardens that backed onto the north side of the Thames, all the way along Battersea Bridge. Lily found number 9 and pushed open the gate. But as they walked up the drive and approached the house, she stopped and said something so quiet Robert almost didn't hear. "We used to live here." Oh my goodness, I wonder what that means. They used to live there. Is this a deep memory that Lily has, or has she been confused? Do you think that this